Fair assessment.
But let's go with our last little segment here. This is just for fun because I got to feel you out. I'm a little bit older than you. So I don't know where your fan base, where your fandom truly starts. So I thought it'd be cool if we did our top 5 Georgia regular season wins of our fandom, of the history of our fandom. I always say, so just to date myself, born in 90, I always say I was a Georgia fan since 01. Like, Champ Bailey's one of my favorite players ever. So like I knew of Georgia obviously before 01. Everything. I was raised this way. But 01 is like the year I just start remembering everything. First year of Mark Richt. I'm really dialed in. What was I, 11 years old at that point? I had no worries in the world. 11, 12, 13 years old. Just Georgia football. So I'll start from number 5. Number 5 on my list, regular season wins, because the SEC championships, the playoffs, those are the easy ones. The Rose Bowl, the Peach Bowl versus Ohio State. Number 5, I'm going with let's first of all, do you have any honorable mentions before we get to the list?
Okay. The only one that I was gonna have as an honorable mention, and it's because I don't remember like watching the full 60 minutes of this game. Okay. Because I was 5 when it was played. But the 2007 blackout against Auburn. That is one that I just remember hearing about my whole life. And then like I remember going on YouTube and like looking at the videos of like the players running out in the black jerseys and seeing the fans freaking out and being like that looks sick. Like that game, and the fact that game happened is probably a big part of the reason that I like wanted to like go here. Like,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that game definitely made my list. It's funny, I actually kind of along those same I was not 5, so I was around, but I didn't see it live, so I couldn't put it on. Was the 2002 Auburn game with Michael Johnson's catch to move Georgia to the SEC championship. We were at a high school basketball game, so I just heard about it after like someone went nuts. It was like Georgia won, but I didn't actually witness it, so I feel like I couldn't actually put it in my list. My honorable mention, I had actually Texas from this past year. It was an honorable mention. Okay. 2013 LSU honorable mention. Any win over Florida is an honorable mention for me. But number 5 on my list is, like you just said, sir, it's 2007 Auburn. That game was just incredible. Just the vibes, the black jerseys and everything. And then just like how it changed the season, just in terms of, I guess that would have been after the Florida game. So Georgia already had some juice. No Sean Marino, Thomas Brown going nuts. Thomas Brown, one of kind of my first like Georgia players I loved. And then no Sean and Stafford. That team was just amazing. So yeah, 07 Auburn. That is number 5 on my list.
All right. I will start with I was up until the last second. I was like trying to figure out my order for this. My number 5 is going to be 2017 against Florida. Georgia won 42-7. It was awesome. I think Georgia had lost I think they beat Florida in 2012, and then I think
they were coming on. So 2017 would have been after 3 straight for Florida.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. And I mean, like you said, any win over Florida is a great one. I'm not gonna like sit here and like I hate Florida more than I think like any other team or like across pro, college, whatever. It's my favorite thing that happens and is when Florida loses, especially to Georgia. So to watch Georgia go out there and just beat them 42-7 on their way to a national championship appearance, I think that was the game where, and maybe not that was the game, because I have another game from this regular season on here too. But that really might have been the game where I was like, no, this team is like awesome. This team is good. This team.
Yeah, I'm with you. That one almost made my list because of just the intangible reason. That's actually, I was thinking we'd do that next week to name our biggest rivals, because the age difference a little bit. But I think it sounds like we're going to agree on our number 1 rival for sure. But yeah, the 2017, because you had Georgia. I remember me and my brother talking about it, like, because I mean, I'm a kid of the 90s. Like 91 to 06, Georgia won twice. So we didn't experience many wins. And then right after that, they won a bunch more. They won a few more in a row. So to win 3 straight 11, 12, 13 like was massive, but it also felt like it took absolutely everything of like Georgia, the fiber of Georgia's being to win those games versus Florida. And for some teams that weren't even that good, 2012 was good, but 11 and 13 weren't even good Florida teams.
No, they weren't.
2017 is like, okay, we are absolutely smashing this team. They did this to us so many times. This is finally the one where we're just going to destroy them.
It was awesome.
Number 4, I got to go with the hobnail boot game. 2001 Tennessee. It's weird because that game, I don't know if you obviously probably don't remember the game, but I'm sure you've seen highlights and everything.
Well, I know about it.
Know of it for sure, because they were already putting the stats on the screen of like, this is Georgia's first win in Knoxville in like 30 years or 20 years, maybe since 1980, I want to say. Like his first year, or maybe 82. And then they threw that 50, 60-yard screen pass to Travis Stevens. So it's like, oh wait, shit, Georgia's gonna lose this game. Like, and then David Green takes him down the field, and the hobnail boot, Larry Munson's iconic call. That had to be top 5 for me.
Yeah, you gotta have that. That's one of the ones that I was educated on as a young child, growing up in an all Georgia household.
There you go. What's your number 4?
So it was one that you had as an honorable mention. I'm gonna go with 2013 versus LSU. I was pretty young for this game. I was in like 5th grade, but like this is the first big win that I really remember like watching and like somewhat comprehending. I'm not gonna act like I was some ball knower at 10 years old. I obviously wasn't.
Yeah.
But like the first Georgia game that I remember really getting super invested in was the year before that, the SEC championship against Alabama. That lost in the last second play. I was like 9 when that happened. But this game, I just remember like felt like the fate of the universe was on the line. I mean, the fact that this was one of my introductions to really watching college football as a kid was like super dope. I mean, it was a classic SEC 3:30 shootout. You have NFL players on both sides. I think Todd Gurley left that game early, but you have Aaron Murray, Keith Marshall, Chris Conley, like a bunch of dudes, Leonard Floyd, and then LSU that year had an NFL team. It was Odell and Jarvis at wideout, Jeremy Hill running back, Georgia legend Zach Mettenberger.
And the storyline of Mettenberger coming back to Athens too. Like college game day in the house.
Yeah, like that whole game was just so crazy. And the way it ended with the touchdown to Justin Scott Wesley at the end and everything, like I think that's just one of the most entertaining games ever played in this sport. And the fact that it was a Georgia win and I got to watch it was pretty awesome. Also, I think one of the coolest crowds you'll ever see is from that game. So yeah,
that was definitely a huge one. Especially, I will say, it was the second big win of the season, though, sir. So have some respect on that 2013 team, because that's why that year was so frustrating. Because Clemson, South Carolina, and LSU were all preseason top 10 that year, and it was 3 of the first 4 games of the season. So that LSU win after you beaten South Carolina a couple of weeks before that, to beat LSU and start 3-1 with that ridiculous schedule, and we lost so much of the defense, it was like, okay, maybe this team can just win with offense this year. And then every single offensive playmaker got injured that year.
I forget how nice South Carolina was that year. That was Connor Shaw and like Mike Davis, Clowney, and them. Yeah, that was
they were a top 10 team. That was another Justin Scott Wesley.
That was a really good team. I just forget how good they were.
Yeah, and Justin Scott Wesley had the long touchdown in that one too. And I remember Mark Richt, because Mark Richt and Aaron Murray like embodied each other. Like a lot of Georgia fans don't want to talk about how they hated on Aaron Murray for 3 years and just kind of sweep that under the rug. But they definitely, I heard them loud and clear. Made the best quarterback that ever played at Georgia. They just hated on him for like 3 years. So that LSU game, I think that's one of Mark Richt's like crying in the post game. And it was just like, it was such a massive win. Georgia always seemed to lose when they were on game day too. So it was like, that was just a massive win all around.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Number 3, I got to go 2021 Clemson, because that was just Man, I've started to notice a trend with my list. Once we get done, I can talk about it. But the defensive performance was just a lot of games that are like the most fun games to rewatch are those games where, you know, they score like 40 points on offense or something.
Happens.
But yeah, to just watch a defensive performance of it was like 8 sacks, they just never score. The defense gets a pick 6. It was just that game, and obviously just being that what that team ended up being. And what Clemson was to that point. I mean, that was literally like a changing of the guard in college football. Georgia dethroning Clemson and putting themselves in that top group in the sport.
Yeah, that was awesome. That game was actually my first game as a student at Georgia. I was not there,
nice.
but like I remember, I watched it with a couple of buddies, and everything. But like, yeah, I remember there's like that game being 3v5, and then yeah, like you said, obviously what that Georgia team turned out to be versus that game was kind of the last like, I mean, Clemson made the playoffs this year, but that was the last that until then that was Clemson kind of went away for a while, as you know.
Yeah, is that the last time they were a top 5 team?
Yeah, and like no, I just remember being like, you know, that game. That's the only thing. You know, you had Brock Bowers kind of breaking out of that game, being like, man, they sure do throw it to 19 a lot. That Chris Smith pick 6 was, you know, the only play that happened like the entire time. Like, yeah, that was a fantastic introduction to the 2021 Georgia team. And it's weird to go back and rewatch it because I don't know about you, but I honestly, every single time I go back and rewatch it, I forget that JT Daniels started that game. I'm like, that's JT Daniels.
Yeah, it is. It is very weird. I remember Brandon Adams that off season who ended up looking like a genius because they asked Todd Monken about Eric Gilbert when he transferred to Georgia, and he was like, yeah, he's kind of like a Brock Bowers type, and people were like, a Brock Bowers type? We've already seen this guy play. Does he already know how good Brock Bowers is? And apparently Todd Monken did already know how good Brock Bowers was in the spring before he ever played a game. But yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, he got like the first 2 or 3 catches of the game. We're like, wait, what's happening? Is the tight end the best player on our team? It turns out he was. Okay, what's number 3 on your list?
All right, number 3 on my list. I flipped this one. I had this one at 5, but I moved it before this. Also from the 2017 season. I'm gonna go with the Notre Dame game.
That's a good call. I honestly forgot. That's definitely an honorable mention. I honestly forgot about that one.
And I know Georgia fans like the 2019 one better because it was in Athens and it was this electric environment. And that's I totally get that. And that was
better for the university and the community and all that.
Yeah, and like that was also a really good game. But I don't think there was anything like watching them run out there in South Bend and seeing touchdown Jesus and playing against the Golden Domers. Like, I mean, and in a lot of ways too, I think that was the game where you kind of realized that Jake Fromm, you know, had a little something, you know, like that was where you kind of realized like, wait, this freshman, like you can win with him. So many iconic moments in that game. You have the Terry Godwin catch. You have Davin Bellamy sacking Brandon Wimbush at the end, forcing a fumble to win it. I mean, like that's not a game. I just remember my dad and my parents after that game kept saying like that's not a game Georgia like would ever win. In recent years, coming off of the Mark Richt era, especially. And yeah, I think that was one of the first. That might have been the first real like signature win of Kirby Smart's career, unless I'm just forgetting one. But like that was a huge one, man.
It meant the most because
like Auburn the year before that, maybe.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. But that one actually meant something. Like it was a season. Like that was just like a nice little. Hey, we're building something here. Year one.
They already lost 5 games by then. But Notre Dame was like, hey, we have a team. Like
That's a good call. That should definitely have been on my honorable mention list. Number 2, I'm gonna go with 2022 Tennessee because. As I've noticed on my list, I love games that we just get after the quarterback, man. It's the defensive performance in that game also. Just Jalen Carter, Javon Bullard just sacking Hendon Hooker on like the same play like 4 times in a row or something. I'm not really sure how many sacks Javon Bullard ended up at. Javon Bullard is one of my all-time favorite Georgia players, especially when he was in the Star. That Tennessee game was just incredible. Like some of the best like moments. Stetson, with that first touchdown, and exactly, the fans calling him or whatever. Yeah. Jalen Carter, the worst call in like the history of sports.
Yeah,
it wasn't a safety. Oh my God. I don't know what happened there, but it set up Lad McConkey's touchdown the first play of the next drive. So it's all good. We all saw it. We all saw Jalen Carter single-handedly dominate their O-line. So yeah, I gotta go. I think the only number 1 versus number 2 game, or number 1 versus number 1 game, because I think it was number 1 AP team versus number 1 playoff team.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be number 2, or that's got to be up there on the list.
Yeah. I think you said you had this as an honorable mention, but my number 2 is this season at Texas.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. I think you put it pretty good earlier when we were talking about this game. It's like that win just came out of nowhere. It didn't feel like a win that they were going to get at all. They had pretty bad performances against like Kentucky and the like. And also, so my top, this is the only game that I have on here that I was actually in the press box for Red and Black stuff. I was thinking about putting Georgia Tech on here too, but I didn't want to have 2 games on here that was like I was there for. So like I was in the press box for. So I just put 1. This game was sick. I mean, 7 sacks in the first half. Being there in the press box, looking down and seeing the fans throwing water bottles and realizing what was going on in real time, like I'll never forget that. I'll never forget.
I was at the Braves infield fly game back in 2012. I did experience other fans throwing stuff on the field.
Too close, yeah. And then like I'll never forget like hearing the crowd go crazy when Arch Manning comes in, thinking that they're about to make some miracle comeback. Of course, that all immediately gets shut down. I think another strip sack happened like right after that.
Yeah.
But that was as much of a
we all clinched up a little bit when Arch Manning.
For sure. I've seen Tua Tagovailoa and what he's capable of. But yeah, like. That game was just super cool. I mean, I got to go on the field with a few minutes left, and I got to stand right in front of Bevo. Like there were just so many moments that I'll cherish for the rest of my life from that game. So that's my number 2.
All right, good stuff. Number 1 on my list, I got to go 2007 Florida, because nothing is better than beating Tim Tebow and the Gators. So I'm a certified Gator hater, sir. And just sandwiched in between 2 championship years, 06 and 08 for Florida. Like I just remember Marcus Howard and Georgia sacked Tebow like 7 times. Gary Danielson would have told you it was because of his hurt non-throwing shoulder coming into the game, but I don't want to hear any of that, Gary. Shout out to Gary Danielson, who's gonna be going his last season. But 2007 Florida, nothing is better than beating Florida as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, man.
And just the electricity, no Sean's like breakout game. That was just an amazing game.
That was the Gator stomp, right?
Yeah. I didn't even name that.
That's like the greatest moment in Georgia football history is like Mark Richt telling them to do that is like so still I feel like so out of character for Mark Richt that like I love that so much that he did that.
It was because the week before they'd beaten Vanderbilt either in overtime or like with like a last second field goal. Yeah. And so it was like this team is limping in. And I think the biggest thing was that Georgia seemed legitimately scared of Florida. Like they just played like their worst game. Like those Ron Zook teams weren't any good, but somehow Florida, I think he won like 2 out of 3 versus Georgia. Yeah. Like just Georgia made such uncharacteristic mistakes against Florida. Terrence Edwards drop in 0-2. Like there's just so many like dumb things they did. And it was like the 07 game was Rick being like, we're not fucking scared of these guys. All right. We're going to come out and play. We're going to punch them in the mouth and like, let's see what happens. I could have been at that game also, but I didn't want to go with one of my friends who was a Florida fan and his family. I don't know. It would have been, it's like my number, it's literally my number 1 game. And I could have been there for free as a 17-year-old, but it was, still had a good time at the house.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What's your number 1?
You already said it, but it's 2022 Tennessee.
Okay.
This is the only game that I was there for as a student. I won't say like a lot that you already said, but like all I'll say about that game, because we've already kind of been over it, is like when it started raining, the like hushed intensity that fell over the crowd, like it's probably what being in like the Colosseum in Rome felt like in the ancient ages. Like that's what it felt. It felt like you were like watching like gladiators fight. Like it was insane. It's the best sports atmosphere I've ever been in my entire life. The fact that I got to be a student here when it happened, the fact that like I got to go, it was awesome. It was, I mean, the beating the number one team in the country, reclaiming Georgia's spot as the number one team in the country, like that was really special. And it was an awesome game. Shout out to Stetson Bennett, man. Shout out to
that's great stuff. It really doesn't get bigger than number one versus number one, and in between the hedges as well.